Far from this opera, Colin surveyed his scene of carnage with satisfaction. It had been so good. The screams, the terror, the sprays of blood. Game of Thrones' Red Wedding, but a million times better, because these were real people who had hurt him, especially Cousin Melly. She still looked so beautiful in her shimmering wedding dress. The blood stains glistened fresh across the sparkly bodice. The oaf she had been marrying was lying beside her. At least Colin saved her from that cretin. He kicked the groom's body out of the way. He wanted to fall next to Melly. The bridesmaids had been fun to kill, especially silly Violet, who thought she could take his virginity. The blood hardly showed up on their dark red dresses, and as good as Melly had been, of course, her brother, Nick. Nick had punched Colin just before the wedding, just as he had countless times throughout their childhood. Nick was bigger, stronger, richer. Aunt Selina, his mom's sister, had married well, whereas Colin's dad had died in a freak accident when he was a baby. Aunt Selina and Uncle Bob had treated Colin and his mom very well, including them in all family events. But Nick had always tormented Colin, reminding him of his place. Melly would stand up for him, sometimes even grabbing Nick and pushing him off Colin. That was only partly why he loved her so much. She was nowhere in sight when earlier Nick had shoved Colin behind a wall and punched him. "No hard feelings, buddy," he remarked as Colin doubled over, wheezing. "That's to make sure you don't fuss at the wedding. This is Mel's big day, right? I don't like that fella any more than you do, but we're respecting her choice. We all know how you feel about Melly. It was never gonna happen. You get that right?" Colin nodded. "Good boy. Pull yourself together." If Nick hadn't done that, maybe Colin would have spared them all. Or maybe not the sight of his mom, in an ill-fitting dress cast off from Aunt Selina, sparked a rage which carried him through. Why did she do that to him? Why was she always hanging on Aunt Selina's family, grateful for scraps? Couldn't they have just moved away and built a life together? At least she had died next to her precious sister, and looking at their fallen bodies, he wished he could kill them again. It was time. He could hear the sirens. He positioned himself next to his darling Melly, put the gun in his mouth, and pulled the trigger, and jerked his eyes open. They had just started their vows, standing at the altar, Melly resplendent in her gorgeous wedding dress. The bridesmaids, Nick and the groomsmen, were just taking their seats. Nick looked over at Colin and winked. His mother was stifling her sobs. Colin twitched. He would do it, he promised himself. One day he would kill them all. Maybe not today, but soon. My father left me his treasure before he died. My father worked in construction, but his real passion was finding treasures in unusual places. See that guy using a metal detector on the beach on Sunday. Then you see exactly what my father was like. He'd go out on weekends and find the most incredible things. Jewels, silver necklaces and bracelets, sometimes even in gold. Of course, sometimes he'd come back empty-handed and seem almost turned off. Sometimes I could even see a hint of anger hidden inside him. As if to provoke his treasure-hunting friends, he had hidden all his finds in a secret place, buried somewhere in a nearby forest. The thrill of thinking that someone else might stumble across it too seemed to please him. When my father was diagnosed with cancer, he already had less than 1 month to live. My mother had left us a few years earlier for the same reason. On his hospital bed, barely breathing, he asked me to give him a pen and paper. He drew me something, a kind of map, and I understood that he was showing me where his treasure lay. One last hunt for his only son. The next day, I learned of his death and took his equipment to go to the forest. The forest was immense, and I only found the designated spot just before nightfall. I unfolded the shovel I'd brought with me and set to work, tears in my eyes as I thought of my father and all the years he'd spent hoarding this treasure, and the pride of inheriting it. I even thought I should pick up where he left off. He'd probably be proud to see me follow in his footsteps. As I pondered this, I felt something hard under the shovel. A light brown wooden box protruded from the ground. I got down on my knees and held the little lamp in my mouth to light up the night. When I opened it, my eyes widened in surprise. There was a lot more than I'd imagined. Literally kilos of gold, silver of all shapes and sizes. Even cash in bundles. I took the chest out of the hole, telling myself I'd come back for it later, as a souvenir. As I turned back to the hole, I saw something strange. A weird white shape seemed to reflect the light of my torch. I bent down to clean the dirt on it, and what I discovered made my blood run cold. When the police finished digging up the last skeleton, they told me they'd found over 30 in total. I was in disbelief. A few days later, I learned from them that many of these skeletons belonged to people who had been missing for years. I obviously couldn't sell my father's treasures. Instead, I gave them to the police so that they could be returned to the families. One thing was certain though, I definitely wouldn't be following in my father's footsteps after all. There's something you all need to know. Rumors had been circulating for decades about a mysterious virus that was said to alter people's appearance and eventually take over their minds. Turns out, them rumors are true. I live in omitted, and this is where it all starts. Despite the lack of visible symptoms, authorities claim to have a way to identify those who have been infected. Every person here is now required to undergo a mandatory scan using a newly developed device. The device, equipped with advanced technology, would scan the eyes and draw a small amount of blood from the finger. A green flash indicated that the person was clear, while a red flash meant they were infected. Those identified as infected were swiftly removed from their surroundings and loved ones and transported to an undisclosed location on buses specially designated for them. Upon arrival, the infected individuals are ushered into a secure facility where they are provided with basic necessities and given instructions by officers. They are informed that they would have to live in this facility without any government support until the virus either takes their lives or fully manifests. Scientists have discovered that the virus may present in approximately 50% of the population. They warn that when the virus takes hold, it will gradually disintegrate the host's skin, melting away layer by layer, and swiftly followed by their hair and nails. Subsequently, the virus will detach the entire tongue, leading to a gruesome expulsion of vomit and muscle, before ultimately seizing control of the brain and transforming the host into a monstrous entity. Despite the lack of any confirmed cases of the virus reaching this stage, our government insists on segregating the infected individuals to prevent any potential outbreak. Perhaps you're wondering how I know all this. Perhaps you're wondering why you haven't heard a thing about this. Perhaps you're wondering if you're infected. Well, I've been in this facility for 3 weeks now, but before I was here, I was a member of my government. My job role, keeping the virus a secret from the rest of the world for as long as possible. Clearly, I've quit my job by telling you all this, but I just had to get it off my chest, especially if it's the last thing I do. My skin feels weird. This is my suicide note. I hope you understand everything I did for you. I don't know how I've been able to hang on for so long. I still remember the day I first saw your face. The very bright life and energy that radiated out of you was intoxicating. I had never seen someone with that much positivity and energy before. Someone so full of ambition and empathy toward others, always making so many friends everywhere you went. That very spark in you is what drove me to you. I made friends with you at first and spent months and even years growing closer and closer. I was nothing but thrilled when we started dating in college. I was devastated when we had a bad fight that day and broke up. I don't know what happened, but it seemed to cut the bond we had with each other for quite some time. You moved on and got married. I wrapped up my psychology degree and became a therapist. They say you need to let go, but I couldn't. Being without you in my life was like being drowned in water. I stalked your social media and tracked where you lived. I made sure to run into you one day at your favorite cafe. I noticed how that small spark you had was a bit dim, You looked happy, but I knew something was wrong. I don't regret what I did. I had to kill your husband. Luckily, you didn't have any kids yet. If I had tracked you down even a few months later than I had, I'm sure you would have started a family, and that would have made things complicated. Glad I got you when you could. I started off seeing you more and more, which pissed off your husband. I saw how you two fought and decided to send fake messages between you two. After your last fight, which ended with him hitting you, that was the last nail in the coffin. I staged a suicide, making him odd on pills at gunpoint one day. Police wouldn't have any reason to suspect anything since I made him kill himself. Things were falling into place perfectly as you came to me to talk about his death. I held you close and supported you for a year as you eventually put that relationship to peace. Things went back to how they were before. Dating again, having that amazing sex I always imagined, and spending so much time creating memories traveling. I thought it would last forever, but I was badly mistaken. I really do feel for you. The miscarriage was just devastating. The fact that it happened twice is something I curse God for. We dealt with the depression in our own ways and sadly resorted to alcohol. It got to be too much, and we are now on the verge of breaking up again. By the time you read this letter, my brain will probably be painted across the wall. I didn't mean for this to happen. Sincerely, Jacob. The grass is always greener. But honey, you look as young now as the day I married you. I assured her as she leaned in towards the mirror at her aging face. Just go out and have fun and don't be listening to Liz. Marie and her sister Liz haven't been getting on lately. Marie said it's because Liz's husband left her, and she hasn't been getting any. But there was a reason Liz's husband left. Me and Liz have been sleeping together for almost a year, and he started to wise up. But luckily, we were friends, so I was able to throw him off my trail and onto Ben's, his next door neighbor. He saw me leaving their house one too many times, and I was afraid he would say something if he was questioned. Ben's wife left him over it, and they both moved out without anyone knowing I was involved, which was a double bonus for me. Unfortunately, without the risk of getting caught, it kind of got boring, and I planned on ending it. But I wanted one more night. People often ask me why bother cheating since they're both twins and look exactly alike. The truth is I don't know. Maybe Liz was just that little bit cuter, or maybe I was just bored of the same damn thing every night. To take Marie's mind off Liz's insults, I sent her out for the night with her friend Denise, who was very pretty and probably my next target. I even paid for a hotel, so she didn't have to worry about finding her way home drunk. Liz being so vulnerable, I managed to talk her into bringing a friend, and to make it better, she even picked a friend, but she wouldn't tell me who. She wanted it to be a surprise. Finally, here's the taxi, I thought. Time to take my little blue pill. Enjoy your night, honey. You deserve it. I stated, walking her towards the door. I'm so lucky to have you. She replied with a tear in her eye as I closed the door behind her and rolled my eyes. I had a very special night planned, so I went up to the attic to get the box of toys straight away and started setting up the bedroom. I wasn't really into handcuffs, but Liz seemed into them, and I didn't want to let her down in case she backed out. So I stripped off, put on my blindfold, then handcuffed myself to the bed when I heard the car like she said. Moments later I heard footsteps coming up the stairs, then the door opened, and I heard panting. "Hi, honey," I heard my wife say. "I've been looking forward to this since I buried Liz last month." Then I felt a cold liquid pour all over mine. It smelled like bacon. The last thing I heard was, "Get him, boy," before the dog ripped off my. I am so sorry for inventing work. I am the one who invented work, and I am so sorry to all of you. It is because of me that you all now have to work, and I thought that it was an intelligent idea at the time. I am an intelligent person, but I am without wisdom, so I didn't realize the amount of problems this would create. As a small token of redemption, I seek out a random individuals and I say sorry to them for inventing work. It is because of me that you all have to get up early or work the night shift. It is my fault that you all have to rely on work to survive. I found a random man and I went up to him and I apologized to him for inventing work. He scorned me as I showed him proof that it was I that had created work. My eyes glowed gray, and he knew that I was another worldly being. He punched me for inventing work, but when I saw that he lived inside a mansion, I scorned him back by saying that he is a rich man who is certainly benefiting from work, or is benefiting from other people working. He reassured me that he isn't rich, but that was hard to believe when I went inside his mansion. He had multiple cars and lavish interior design, and he even had a swimming pool, but he still denied that he was rich. He was the wrong man for me to say sorry towards to because he is a rich man. I need to go to a struggling poor person and I need to say sorry to them for inventing work. Every day when I see humans miserably driving towards work, I feel so ashamed. When I see working suffering from mental health issues due to going to work, it is my fault. This man, though, still claimed that he isn't rich, and he beat me up for creating work. He even shot me in the face and stabbed me for creating work. Then a woman appeared out of thin air, and she kept saying to the man, "I am dumping you, I am dumping you, I am dumping," and the man screamed in anger. The man then took me to a room hidden by other rooms. There he showed me the body that was actually the real rich owner of the mansion and cars. He was going out with her and was enjoying the rich lifestyle until she dumped him. Now he has to work and he hates me for inventing work. In the end, I was right to go to him to be punished for inventing work. I am so sorry. How hat is this thing? This is not my personal story, but my dad's. I want to see what people think the thing in this story could be. So this happened a long time ago before him and my mom had gotten married. When they were dating, my dad and my mom lived in different states for a short period of time because of work. I don't remember where my mom was, but my dad was in Arizona. So when my mom visited my dad, he would have to drive a relatively far distance to get to the airport to pick her up or drop her off. Not only was it far, but the only road there was in the middle of desert, so basically in the middle of nowhere. So one time my dad had dropped off my mom at the airport so she could go home. It was pretty late at night when he had dropped her off, so now outside was pitch black except for light from the car's headlights. There were also like no cars at this time, so the road was completely empty. While my dad was just driving back home after dropping my mom off, not really worrying about anything, when he noticed something in the middle on his side of the road. He slowed down to see what it was and saw what looked like a fairly big animal laying down and appearing to be dead. My dad told me he was fairly certain it was a deer. But he was looking at the animal from inside his car. All of a sudden, the animal's head sat up straight and looked at him and just stared. He said he saw the skin of the animal move, and that he saw a figure of what looked like a person inside of it. But he didn't get a super good look cause without a second thought he said in his own words fuck this, and immediately drove around it and sped away. He told me as he was driving he could feel and hear something running alongside of the car, and he started to panic. Right as my dad was saying a prayer in his mind and continuing to speed down the empty road for a few minutes, he finally felt like he had lost whoever or whatever had been chasing him. My dad said he doesn't believe it was something supernatural, but that he just felt an immense amount of fear in that moment and that he was in some sort of danger. He also refused to drive on that road if it was dark ever again because of that instance. So I don't know what that thing or animal or whoever was in my dad's experience. I kinda want to see if anybody has any information on maybe what it could possibly be, supernatural or not. I sell corpses. Everything changed when they passed the law. Killing and selling corpses became a legal trade to help counter overpopulation and control resources. The first few days came with some backlash, but in the end, those who were against the trade disappeared. Ever since I began selling corpses, my pockets have never been empty. My family is able to live in a comfortable house, My kids' college tuition was paid in full, and my retirement is set. My most popular customers? I'd guess young adults looking for a good time. I never ask any questions as to what my customers do with the corpses they buy, but as long as I'm paid, it doesn't matter. How do I acquire the corpses? There's two main ways I get them. Oftentimes, serial killers come by to sell some of their fresh produce. I normally buy them in bulk at a good price when there's high demand. The second way is going out to hunt myself. Based on the request of my customers, sometimes I won't have what they want in stock, so I go out and find them myself. It's a bit tricky sometimes with how much they struggle and beg, but eventually they just let it happen. Are they clean? Yes. Before I sell the corpses, they go through a bit of taxidermy to make sure the corpse can be preserved for a long time. Do I feel any remorse? Not really. It's a stable job that allows my family to survive and keeps the bills paid. It's no different from the clerk at the supermarket selling veggies or the news reporter on TV. I see it as providing a service to the community to help control overpopulation and resources. Now, here's my question to you, dear customer. What kind of corpse are you looking for?